right, we're back after a quick break. And Doctor, I mentioned before the break we want to talk a little bit about herd immunity, but also the rising numbers of pediatric cases. And I should point out, I think earlier tonight on our main newscast, we mentioned right now in Tennessee, I think we're up to about 74 pediatric hospitalizations in Tennessee. And it's tough to balance that. Obviously, in the larger picture, that is a very small number when you look at all the kids in Tennessee, and then if you look at those who've tested positive, it's a small number, but it is a record high that we've had so far. So definitely showing an increase, and we'd like to see 0 hospitalizations, obviously. So point that out before anyone jumps on me saying that I'm trying to skew the numbers. I do recognize that is a small number, but it also is a record high. What concerns you most about this spike in pediatric cases?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I should emphasize, even in addition, in the last 2 weeks, for school-age children in Tennessee, cases increased from just under 5,000 to more than 20,000.
Right.
And as Roger mentioned, many school-aged children are not eligible to be vaccinated. Mm-hmm. So the most vulnerable people in the community include our children. And even though coronavirus still does not typically make children very sick, because so many more children are getting infected, we will see the total number of children who get severe illness increase as well. Yeah. And these are, of course, nobody wants to see our children in that situation. So I think it becomes critically important for us to make sure that the adults around our children are vaccinated to protect them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we heard a lot in the beginning about herd immunity, and I've heard from different experts recently saying that we just may not be able to pull that off in our country because of there are so many people who are hesitant. Do you agree?
I think it's unfortunate to see now. I just came off of a stretch in the hospital, and almost every person we see hospitalized with COVID-19 has not been vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And as you're talking to people as a physician, if they're sick, if they're well enough to talk to me, and I ask them, have you talked to your family members? I just plead with them, talk to the people around you who are your loved ones to make sure they're protected. At that point, many of them are, critically ill and can't breathe well or on oxygen. So I do think it's going to be a challenge for us to get to herd immunity, but we can certainly keep trying. We've definitely seen upticks in vaccination, as you mentioned, in response to the Delta variant. And I think the more people that are personally affected, unfortunately, by loved ones being ill, that may be a motivation, and hopefully that's not without its own damage being done to family members. Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit more about motivation, which is kind of the topic tonight, is the FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine. Will that motivate or change people's opinion, motivate more people to get the vaccine? And I'm going to talk about some other kind of motivations that have been out there for a little bit in just a minute, but I want to get back to the phones. So let's go to, I believe this is Kevin. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Roy, how you doing?
Doing well, Kevin. Tell me you've been vaccinated.
Well, I had the virus, Roy, but I'm better now.
Okay, good. So you feel like because you had COVID, that you're okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm better. But I know it's going to get better one day, Roy.
All right, Kevin, just be safe, okay? Kevin's one of our regular callers, Doc, and a loyal viewer. All right, Kevin, thanks. And since Kevin called in, so he said he's had it. This is another question for you. Those who say, well, I've had it and I have antibodies, so I'm not going to get vaccinated, that's not necessarily accurate.
That's true. We know that the immunity you get from infection, it goes away over time. And so we recommend that 3 months after your infection is when you should start to get vaccinated again. That protection will not last forever. It will probably go away after a few short months.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to Tom next on line 4. Hey, Tom, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well.
Hey, oh, good. I got vaccinated in March. I'm
Okay.
74 years old.
Okay.
But here's what I want to talk about. The guy that called in and said he wasn't going to get vaccinated, he sounds like a Phil Valentine clone to me. I wonder where he gets his information. Let me guess, the same place our Governor Bill Lee went on Sean Hannity on Fox News and said, children do not get sick from COVID. Would you mind telling me if that's true? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, we know that this is also, turned very political, and there have been a lot of statements that have frustrated a lot of people. I will point out in the Phil Valentine case that he just brought up, obviously most people know the story, the local conservative commentator, and full disclosure, he has worked with us in the past here at NewsChannel 5, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family. He did pass away last weekend from COVID, but we do know that in the final days that he did send a message through his family that he regretted some of the statements about the vaccine, and it is sad. We've done a lot of stories, Doctor, with people who are very, very sick in the hospital who basically said, I was wrong, and they plead with people because they see how sick certain people can get, and they're just pleading with people to go ahead and get vaccinated. I mean, it's sad to see, but hopefully that will also spur more people, like you said.
My goal is to make sure people have their questions answered, that they have factual information from which to make decisions. And I agree, it's unfortunate that there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think the last caller asked, can children get sick? And they can. We know that most children do not get severe illness, but the more children that get infected, that the total number of kids who get severe illness will also be higher. And it's unacceptable to allow our kids to get sick in that way. It's preventable.
Yeah, absolutely. 737+, if you would like to call in. I mentioned that the motivation. Obviously, if your company is now mandating that you get a vaccine, or you're going to be charged a surcharge with health insurance, that is motivation in one way. But we've also seen all sorts of creative things that states, governments, local governments have done, from lotteries to trips. And there are some folks who have said that has actually, that has worked in some cases. What do you think?
Right. I think it's all hands on deck. Incentives have been used in healthcare in a variety of ways, and whether it's to promote smoking cessation, to get people to join the gym, and there is a lot of evidence that these kinds of incentives can help, especially in the short term. We need that extra push, whatever we can get, to get these numbers up of vaccination, where our populations can really be better protected against future variants, things that could be even more, devastating than the Delta variant.
So you're all for, let's, and I've heard now that there are, specific marketing campaigns that really target people that they know certain groups of unvaccinated people who like to travel, well, we're going to offer them a chance at a weekend trip, and there are other people who like the lottery. We're going to, they really want to do the best to dangle the right carrot in front of the right face, right?
Yeah. I think it's creative. I mean, I think that, as we mentioned, people are hesitant for a variety of reasons. So it won't be a one-fits-all approach. That last segment of the population that we need to appeal to, it will take a lot of creative approaches to make sure we really protect most of our communities.
So obviously you talk a lot about misinformation. This is what you do for a living. You're an assistant professor of infectious diseases at a highly regarded hospital and around the country. I'm sure it's frustrating for you to hear some of the the misinformation and outright just false statements, lies about coronavirus and the vaccine itself that are going around. And certainly social media doesn't help because it spreads information or misinformation so fast. Where does all of this originate, this skepticism and hesitancy? Where do you think a lot of this originates?
Well, that's a pretty broad question.
Yeah.
I think that, in this pandemic in particular, we are learning a vast amount of information in a short amount of time. And the information is evolving. So I think some of that responsibility falls on us, the medical community, the public health community, and the media, to make sure that we are sharing information as we get it. And sometimes that means that, we may be wrong about certain things. What we thought earlier, as we get more information, we revise. But of course, that requires some trust, some trusting relationship, with the healthcare system and the community we're talking to. And in many instances, that trust has been eroded for different populations. So it's difficult to message complicated and sometimes changing information over time. So I think it's a challenging process, particularly in this type of pandemic situation.
Yeah, and you hear a lot about that. Well, I've heard mixed messages, and they said this in the beginning and that, and I've tried to tell people, the sources that I've gone to said from the very beginning, buckle your seatbelt, because what we're telling you today may change. This is, we may have to alter, which is exactly what's happened as we've gone on, whether it's for masking or not, and so on and so forth. But something interesting, right before we came on, we actually had a commercial on our main channel, and it was from a law firm looking to represent people for some type of medical mesh that failed, I guess. And the line in the commercial was, it was rushed to market and failed, and if this happened to you, call us because we're going to get you money. Okay. And there have been other incidents, over the counter drugs that have been pulled after a certain time. They've looked at data and said, no, this can cause you harm. And some people have said, well, look, how did that slip through the cracks? Did the FDA fail us with all of these different things through the years? And why should I believe them now when they're approving this vaccine?
Right. Well, I think that, it's if you understand the level of rigor and the level of scrutiny that the FDA uses to license drugs and vaccines, then it becomes clearer. I think as a researcher myself, even to, as I mentioned, even to get permission to apply for FDA approval requires a level of intensity in your work that many researchers can't even adhere to that standard. So I think that there's no perfect system. I think the fact that we see even now the FDA saying, look, we are going to make sure we have certain metrics and things answered before we issue full FDA approval for children, for the other vaccinations. It shows that even though they have to consider the benefits and the risks and the urgency of the situation, they still have a certain system that they have to follow. So to me, I feel very comforted by that.
Sure. All right. One more call before our next break. Let us go to, let me see if I can find line 6 here. 10, 9, 8. Okay, there we go. This is Ellen. Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
Hey, go ahead. Doing well. What's on your mind?
Great. So I wish I'd known your show was going to be on, because I would have gathered my research and statistics.
That's all right.
But, no, I am not going to take the vaccine.
Okay.
It's not a hard and 100% fast decision. At some point in the future, I'm open to reevaluating.
Okay. That's good to hear.
But based on the just the pure statistic of the survival rate, if someone in my age group catches it, there's no reason for me to take it. And here are the reasons, some of the top ones. I don't trust the VAERS numbers. I don't trust that they're accurate, correct. I think things have been hidden about this based on money. Pharma is big business, and you don't hear anyone from the FDA or the CDC or Dr. Fauci telling people, hey, work on your health. Corona is going to be around a while. Lose some weight if you can. Take some vitamin D3 with K. Eat it with a fatty meal so it will absorb. Take some zinc. Take some C. Get healthy. Exercise. Sleep. No one talks about that. It's about the money. But instead, they want to push the vaccine, push the shots. It's not natural. Tying into that, when you look at the board members and the heads of the CDC and Pfizer and Moderna, it's extremely incestuous. And they all, hold hands, talk behind closed doors, and I feel like it's all about big money, big pharma, and pushing the shot. And I'd like to know why the CDC has decided not to count deaths or infections, and most specifically deaths and adverse reactions from the shot within the first 2 weeks of being vaccinated. I think that's another way for them to hide adverse reactions from the public. So there have been deaths, and I do know people who do believe that they have gotten blood clots that landed them in the hospital from the vaccine. And I feel like it's being hidden, the numbers of adverse reactions. So I will not take it.
Okay, great points. We're going to hold on that. We're going to go to a break.
We can also talk about antibody-dependent enhancement.
Okay.
And I feel like, and by the way, I feel like there's been misinformation on this show, because from what I have heard, it's the people who are vaccinated right now that have caught COVID that have an extremely high load of virus right now, and it's not the unvaccinated, it's the vaccinated that are carrying 2,400 more times the virus.
Wow. All right, let's hold right there. We are going to take a break to answer a lot of that. Doctor, hang on. We're going to do this commercial break, come back and tackle some of Ellen's concerns. Stay with us.